Throughout history, humanity has tried to explain the unexplainable. When people vanish without a trace, the desperation for answers often gives way to fear. And in those shadows of uncertainty, stories of creatures that defy logic are born. Beings that lurk in the darkness, and according to witnesses, are responsible for these disappearances. Today we will explore 10 cases where human disappearances have been attributed to mysterious creatures. Some of these stories are deeply rooted in myths and legends, while others are based on real sightings that have left entire communities terrified. From the darkest corners of the forests to the depths of the jungle, these creatures have sown fear and confusion. Prepare yourself, because we will escalate in intensity, starting with unsettling cases and moving toward stories that will chill your blood. What lies behind these disappearances? Myths, coincidences, or something more terrifying and real than we can imagine? Let's begin. Number 10. We start this list with a case that, while it does not have a long list of victims, has left a trail of mystery and confusion. We are talking about a strange being that terrorized a small community in Illinois during the 1970s. Its appearance was as unsettling as its behavior, and the witnesses who dared to confront it still tremble when they recall what they saw. This is the case of the Enfield monster. In April 1973, the quiet town of Enfield, Illinois, became the epicenter of an event that few have been able to explain. It all began when a boy playing in his backyard claimed to have seen a deformed creature slowly approaching him. According to the child's account, this figure had 3 legs, short claw-like arms, and red eyes that glowed in the dark. Terrified, the boy ran into his house, but the creature did not stop. It struck the house's wall forcefully, as if trying to get in. Alerted by the noise, Henry McDaniel, the child's father, stepped outside with a flashlight and a gun in hand. What he saw left him petrified. McDaniel described the creature as something that looked like nothing from this world. According to his testimony, he fired at the being, but it leaped unnaturally, speeding away. Though he failed to catch it, it left deep marks on the ground, footprints that did not match any known animal. In the following days, other neighbors reported similar sightings. Some claimed to have heard strange noises and seen silhouettes in the darkness, watching them from afar. However, authorities could not find conclusive evidence, and the case remained a mystery. If the Enfield monster surprised you, what comes next is even more unsettling. A legendary creature whose presence has been reported for centuries, and that could be linked to disappearances in North American forests. Number 9. From the dense forests of the Pacific Northwest to the Appalachian Mountains, an imposing figure has been reported for generations. Known as Bigfoot or Sasquatch, this creature is described as a bipedal being, covered in dark fur, standing over 8 feet tall. But what makes this creature more than just a legend is the trail of disappearances that seem to follow it. In the 20th century, Bigfoot sightings began gaining more attention, particularly in national parks across the United States and Canada. Reports included guttural sounds, massive footprints, and broken branches in areas where hikers had gone missing. One of the most chilling cases occurred in 1951, when a group of hikers disappeared near Mount Shasta, California. According to reports, before losing contact, the group had mentioned hearing inhuman screams coming from deep within the forest. Although authorities attributed the disappearances to possible accidents or wild animals, some local witnesses claimed to have seen a huge, hairy figure lurking in the area. The traces found included disproportionately large footprints and deep scratches on trees, as if something with superhuman strength had passed through. But this is not an isolated case. In 1980, in Olympic National Park in Washington State, a camper disappeared after telling his group that something had been watching him from a distance. When they returned to search for him, they only found his backpack, surrounded by massive footprints. If Bigfoot took us to the darkest corners of North American forests, the next case takes us back in time to a small village in Spain, where the terror was not a legendary creature, but something many believe to be real. Number 8. In the 19th century, the quiet region of Alares in Galicia, Spain, became the setting for a case that left deep marks in the history of crime and folklore. Between 1843 and 1853, more than 13 people disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The bodies of some victims were found but not intact, fueling rumors that a predator was stalking the region. The villagers spoke of a monstrous wolf that attacked with inhuman ferocity, but over time, fear took an even more terrifying turn. Suspicion fell on a man, Manuel Blanco Romasanta, a traveling salesman who roamed the villages. Romasanta did not deny the crimes. In fact, he claimed something that shocked everyone. He said he himself was the wolf they had been searching for. Romasanta insisted he was under a curse that transformed him into a wolf during full moon nights. He said that in his animal form, he couldn't control his thirst for blood, which drove him to hunt and devour his victims. During his trial, which captured the attention of all of Spain, witness testimonies were gathered recounting disappearances, traces of giant wolves, and mutilated bodies. Although doctors dismissed his story as mere superstition, Romasanta's confession left many wondering. Was he a human murderer, or truly a werewolf? Number 7. From the legends of Galicia, our journey now takes us to a much harsher place, the Canadian Arctic. There, in the vastness of the tundra, the cold is not the only enemy. Local accounts speak of something else, something lurking in the endless snow. A solitary and enormous creature that, according to witnesses, takes those who dare to walk alone in these frozen lands. Get ready to discover the legend of the giant Arctic wolves. In the cold and desolate lands of the Canadian Arctic, the Inuit have passed down stories for generations about a wolf unlike any other. Known as the Amarok, this giant wolf is said to hunt alone, unlike its common relatives that move in packs. Its massive size and legendary strength make it the undisputed ruler of these frozen lands. According to legend, the Amarok does not only stalk animals that cross its path, but also humans who venture alone into the tundra. Tales speak of hunters and travelers who vanished without a trace after entering these lands, leaving behind only footprints that abruptly ended in the snow. The tracks left after its attacks are unsettling, deep claw marks and remains of abandoned campsites. In one case recorded by the Inuit in the 19th century, a group of hunters attempted to capture the supposed giant wolf after a young man disappeared in the middle of a snowstorm. According to the account, they never saw him again, but they found enormous footprints that seemed to fade into the snowy horizon. While many consider the Amarok a mythological figure meant to warn of the Arctic's dangers, testimonies from modern explorers and local inhabitants claiming to have seen wolves of colossal size keep this legend alive. Some even suggest that these wolves could be descendants of extinct species like the dire wolf, Canis dirus. The giant Arctic wolves represent the connection between myths and the harsh environment in which they emerged. Whether a real creature or an ancestral warning to respect nature, their presence in Inuit stories reminds us that the Arctic holds secrets we may never fully understand. But the mystery does not end here. As we move forward on this list, the disappearances become even more disturbing, and the creatures responsible harder to explain. What awaits us at number 6 challenges everything we know about nature and fear. Number 6. Between 1968 and 1985, Florence, a city famous for its art and beauty, became the setting for one of the most horrifying murder sprees in modern history. The so-called Monster of Florence terrorized couples seeking moments of intimacy in secluded areas. While the bodies of the victims were found, many stories speak of people who vanished without a trace in the same locations. The modus operandi was chilling. Victims were attacked while in their vehicles or camping in isolated areas. However, the details went beyond simple murders. The killer mutilated the bodies in a ritualistic manner, leading many to speculate about a connection between these crimes and occult cults, or even an inhuman creature. What makes this case even more unsettling is that the perpetrator was never conclusively identified. While several theories point to a human killer, some witnesses claim to have seen strange shadows and figures that did not appear human lurking around the crime scenes. These accounts fueled the belief that something more than just a man might have been involved. The legend of the Monster of Florence has endured over time. Some suggest it could have been a giant wolf or a supernatural creature moving through the shadows, stalking those who dared enter its territory. Others, more pragmatic, believe the monster was an organized group or a serial killer with still unknown motives. The monster of Florence not only left behind a trail of victims and disappearances, but also a profound sense of uncertainty in Italy's history. To this day, this case remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries, and its name still evokes a fear that has not faded. But if you think this is terrifying, what comes next takes us to a small town in West Virginia, where a winged creature became the center of one of the greatest mysteries of the 1960s. Number 5. In November 1966, the residents of Point Pleasant began reporting sightings of a winged figure with glowing red eyes. This creature, known as the Mothman, was primarily seen near the TNT chemical plant, an abandoned site that soon became the epicenter of the mystery. What started as mere sightings soon turned far more sinister. Witnesses claimed that the creature seemed to follow them, stalking from the shadows, and some reported feeling an overwhelming hostile presence. Even more disturbing, disappearances were recorded in the surrounding areas, with missing persons whose bodies were never found. The most emblematic case occurred in December 1967, when the Silver Bridge, connecting Point Pleasant to Ohio, tragically collapsed, killing 46 people. According to locals, the Mothman had been seen hovering around the bridge in the days leading up to the disaster, leading many to believe that this creature was not only linked to disappearances, but was also an omen of tragedy. Although some have tried to explain the Mothman as a giant owl or a crane, the lack of conclusive evidence and the number of witnesses describing something far more terrifying have kept this mystery alive. To this day, Point Pleasant hosts an annual festival in its honor, but behind the celebration, the shadow of doubt still lingers. The Mothman is much more than a local legend. It is a symbol of the fear of the unknown and the inexplicable tragedies that leave lasting scars on a community. Was it merely an animal, a supernatural omen, or something even more sinister? But if you think this case is unsettling, what comes next will take us deep into the tropical jungles of the Philippines. On the island of Mindoro, a creature lurks among the trees and undergrowth. Its eyes, according to witnesses, glow in the darkness, and its presence has been blamed for disappearances that have left local villages in constant fear. Number 4. On the island of Mindoro, a place known for its biodiversity and lush landscapes, stories about the Sigbin, also known as the monster of Mindoro, have been passed down for generations. This creature is described as something that defies logic, a being with a hunched body, long limbs, and a nauseating odor that announces its presence before it can even be seen. The most chilling accounts tell how this creature stalks on moonless nights, choosing its victims from the most vulnerable. The disappearances attributed to the monster of Mindoro are not few. On several occasions, villagers have found traces of deformed footprints around houses where someone has vanished. In other cases, only a strangled scream is heard in the darkness, followed by silence. One particularly disturbing case occurred in the 1950s when an entire family disappeared from their hut in the middle of the night. Neighbors reported hearing strange noises, like rapid footsteps and a screeching sound, followed by a loud thud. The next day, only deep marks remained in the ground, as if something enormous and heavy had dragged the victims into the jungle. Although many attribute these disappearances to attacks by wild animals such as tigers or large snakes, the witnesses' descriptions and the lack of conclusive evidence have kept the legend of the monster of Mindoro alive. Locals avoid walking alone at night, especially near densely forested areas, where this creature is said to lurk. The monster of Mindoro is not just a legend for the island. It is a constant warning that in the depths of the jungle, there is more than just wild nature. Is it an unknown predator, a myth born of fear, or a creature that still defies our understanding? But while the jungles of Mindoro keep their mystery, our next case takes us to 18th century France, where fear took the form of a beast that terrorized an entire region. For years, its attacks left a trail of death, disappearances, and unanswered questions. Number 3. Between 1764 and 1767, in the region of Gévaudan, France, a series of brutal attacks shocked the villagers. An unknown creature known as the Beast of Gévaudan was said to prowl the forests, mercilessly attacking men, women, and children. Accounts described a beast of enormous size, similar to a wolf but much larger. with an elongated snout and sharp teeth seemingly designed to kill. The victims were found with horrific wounds, and often the bodies simply disappeared, leaving behind only traces of blood. As the number of attacks increased, so did the fear. More than 100 fatal victims were recorded, and the region was paralyzed by terror. What made this creature even more terrifying was its ability to evade hunters. Patrols and expeditions were organized to capture the beast, but all failed. Even the best hunters sent by King Louis XV faced the mystery, managing to kill several large wolves, but the attacks continued. This fueled theories that the beast was not a mere animal, but something far more sinister. Some believed the beast was a hybrid between a wolf and an unknown animal, while others suggested it was a supernatural creature sent to punish the region. There were also those who speculated that it was a wolf trained by a serial killer, using the creature to cover up his crimes. Although in 1767 a giant wolf was killed and declared to be the beast of Gévaudan, the case remains a mystery. The true nature of this creature was never confirmed, and its legend continues to haunt those who read about it. Was it just an animal, a monster of nature, or something darker that still prowls the forests? Number 2. From the dark forests of France, our next stop takes us to the heart of the Amazon rainforest, a place as vast as it is mysterious. Here, amidst the impenetrable vegetation, stories are told of a creature blamed for inexplicable disappearances, a being that, according to legend, not only stalks its victims but also terrifies them with its mere presence. This is the case of the Mapinguari, the monster of the Amazon. In the vast and enigmatic Amazon jungle, where humanity has barely explored a fraction of its territory, indigenous people have passed down stories of the Mapinguari for generations. This creature, according to their accounts, is a giant fur-covered being with a mouth on its abdomen and a nauseating stench that betrays its presence before it appears. Local stories describe how the Mapinguari attacks those who dare to invade its territory. Hunters who venture alone into the jungle have vanished without a trace, and the few who have returned speak of chilling screams and a figure watching them from the shadows. A particularly disturbing case occurred in the 1970s, when a group of explorers disappeared while mapping a remote region of the Amazon. According to locals, they had entered an area that they themselves avoid at all costs, a place they say belongs to the Mapinguari. Days later, their belongings were found abandoned, but not a single trace of the explorers. Some scientists suggest that the Mapinguari could be an indigenous interpretation of the giant ground sloth, a creature that went extinct thousands of years ago. However, contemporary witness reports combined with mysterious disappearances have kept the legend alive. The most unsettling part of these stories is that there is no conclusive evidence, only traces, sounds, and the palpable fear of those who live near these lands remain. The Mapinguari is much more than just a legend. It is a reminder that nature still holds terrifying secrets, and that in the Amazon, the unknown can be just as dangerous as it is real. So far, we have explored terrifying creatures, from giant wolves in the Arctic to hidden beasts in jungles and forests. But now, we arrive at the most fearsome of all, a being that merges the supernatural with the wild. Get ready to discover the true face of horror. Number 1. In the cold and desolate regions of Canada and the northern United States, the Algonquian tribes tell the story of a creature that embodies greed, insatiable hunger, and pure terror, the wendigo. According to legend, this being appears in times of scarcity, when people are desperate to survive, and its presence is closely linked to cannibalism. The wendigo is described as a tall, cadaverous being with sunken eyes, skin stretched tightly over its bones, and a mouth filled with sharp teeth. It is said that those who fall under its influence are consumed by an insatiable craving for human flesh, gradually transforming into the very creature that haunts them. The disappearances attributed to the wendigo have left behind a trail of mystery and fear throughout history. One of the most chilling cases occurred in the 19th century, when a group of hunters vanished during the winter in the forests of Ontario. When they were finally found, only scattered remains were left, and the tracks in the snow suggested that something had been stalking them for days. Over the years, the tales of the wendigo have endured, Some believe these stories are merely metaphors meant to warn against the dangers of cannibalism and desperation, while others insist that the wendigo is a real force still lurking in the most remote corners of the northern forests. The wendigo takes the top spot on this list because it is not just a creature. It is the reflection of humanity's deepest fears. It represents the struggle to survive in extreme conditions, the danger of losing our humanity, and the constant threat of the unknown. Unlike the other creatures, the wendigo does not just attack physically, it destroys the soul, leaving its victims as a warning of its presence.